Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to The Outsider's Perspective. My name's Ollie, and here's your loaf of daily bread. Wrapping up our theme of selfless action, for now anyways, I thought we'd go back to the Tao Te Ching and see what Lao Tzu has to say on this topic. The sage stays behind, thus he is ahead. He is detached, thus at one with all. Through selfless action, he attains fulfillment. I'm telling you, when it shows up in all the different traditions and all of the key scriptures and texts, it means something. To me, that's like a big red flag. Pay attention to this. Because if it's in the Tao Te Ching and it's in the Bhagavad Gita, and you can hear it from the mouths of Thai Buddhist monks and Roman emperors, there's something there. We have to think about it. Oh, and you know what? Shit gets deeper. It goes even beyond philosophy and spirituality and all these texts. You can find selfless action in the works of a Hungarian psychologist by the name of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote a book called Flow. If you've ever heard about flow states, he's the guy who coined that term. He did a bunch of research on this, and he found some very interesting things. Like when you're engaged in work that is the right amount of challenge, but also enjoyable, you lose track of time. You immerse yourself in the work, and suddenly there's no concern for outcomes. There's no concern for what happened before. You're just fully present with whatever it is that you're doing. You're doing the work, and you're not thinking about anything else. You're not worried about what's going to happen after I'm done this work. You're not worried about what are people going to think if I do this work. You are doing it for its own sake because it is enjoyable and meaningful on its own, and you don't even need a reward or anything afterwards because it is its own reward, right? And this is exactly what Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi is talking about. It's also what Lao Tzu is talking about here. The sage stays behind, thus he is ahead. And if you're always racing to be ahead, in the Taoist view, and in my view, then you're already losing. If you're always trying to be first, you're already losing. There's another passage in the Tao Te Ching where he says something like, the sage competes with no one, therefore no one can best him, or something like that. And it's like, yeah, when you don't compete, you can't be beaten, right? It's that simple. How can you beat me if I'm not competing with you, right? So there's this whole idea, again, of focusing on the work and not worrying about other factors that are beyond your control, like who else is competing against you or what's going to happen when I'm done the work. Am I going to be praised? Am I going to be ridiculed? Doesn't matter. Those things are distractions. Cast them out of your mind. Direct your attention to the work that is here and now. And through selfless action, attain fulfillment, as Lao Tzu suggests, right? When you're detached, that is, when you're detached from your own desires and your own preferences and your own hang-ups, you become closer to the rest of the world, right? Those things separate us. What we want, what we don't want, what we pursue and avoid. Those things actually create a false sense of separation. And that's how the ego gains strength. But if you can cast those things away, or if you can detach yourself from them, then all of a sudden you draw closer to everything and everyone else. It's paradoxical, like all truth. All truth is paradox. Because paradox is a complete proposition, right? Paradox is two opposing statements that are both true. They can't both be true, but somehow they are. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to the rational mind. And that's why it's hard for many of us to grasp these ideas. But selfless action is one of these ideas. It's very counterintuitive. It goes against what we've been conditioned to believe in a lot of ways. Most of us, myself included in many aspects of life, were motivated by some kind of gain, right? I mean, if I wasn't getting a paycheck, I probably wouldn't be going to work, right? I mean, that's one example. But what I have discovered in recent times, in the last year or so, is that you can engage in work, on a contractual basis, right? I mean, this is the agreement that you're signing up for. It doesn't go against the concept of selfless action because it's an arrangement, right? You're signing a contract. I'm going to do this for you. You're going to reward me with this money. But within the framework of that arrangement, there are many opportunities to practice selfless action, right? Because if you're working on a big project, right, and your boss shoots it down or critiques you in front of the executives or whatever, that's an opportunity for selfless action, because it's like, well, the outcome isn't in my hands, and I'm not going to wear this personally, because it's not personal, because again, selfless action. Who gets offended? The self, right? The ego. Who gets worried? Who's insecure? The self, the ego. So when you get rid of that, or when you detach from that and you engage in action, even if things don't go out the best way possible, or things backfire or whatever, it's not the best outcome, it doesn't affect you. You learn from it and you move on. It's that simple. Alrighty, folks. Well, that's all the time I have for you today, and I think that pretty much wraps up this little stint on selfless action, at least for the time being. I mean, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's central to my, daily practice. Not even my daily practice. I mean, it's just central to my way of being and doing things in the world. The more you engage with selfless action, the more it gives back to you. And yeah, I mean, out of all the different sort of modalities or practices that are out there that I've experimented with, this one has been around since basically the very beginning, and it's not going anywhere because it's so important to me. And there are also some more like mystical considerations as well that I haven't even really talked about. I've been focused so much on the sort of practical level, the practical aspects of selfless action. But in truth, when you read the Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, this is how you unite with me, with the Lord, right? And this is how you become one with all things. It's how you align yourself and flow with the Tao, right? Because essentially when you give up the self, when you act without consideration for outcomes and desires, you are putting yourself in the hands of a higher power, and you become an instrument. And that's why it's called selfless action. The self is erased. It's worthwhile. I definitely recommend it. If you can wrap your head around this idea and you can put it into work in your life, you will benefit. I promise you. Alrighty, folks. Thanks for hanging out with me. And we'll switch gears in the next episode and get into some different stuff. And if you have any suggestions or questions or topics that you'd like me to visit, don't hesitate. Comment section, or just shoot me an email. Alrighty, have yourselves a great day. And until next time, live well, my friends.